All right, let's get started. So let's start off with the first concept, detoxification. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff floating around on the internet about detoxes, cleanses. You should not. I'm just going to read you a quote here from a fellow registered dietitian, and she is well-versed in integrative nutrition. It says that she refers to detoxification not as some fad juicing diet or the like, but as eating in a way that supports your body's ability to detoxify effectively and eliminate consistently so you can function optimally. More so, this is eating in a way in which you might eliminate typical food culprits associated with inflammation and focus on whole foods. So, signs that you may need to look into some sort of detoxification protocol might include, but is not limited to, fatigue, digestive concerns, brain fog, immunity concerns, cravings, skin problems, hormonal issues, stress eating. And that information can also be found on eatright.org as well. So, again, this is not an all-inclusive list, but these foods right here do help the body support its own natural detoxification pathways. So cruciferous vegetables, like we're talking, your broccoli, berries, artichokes, garlic, onions, leeks, turmeric, milk thistle, and green tea. So these foods in particular might be complementary to you if you're experiencing any of those symptoms. Now, as far as an actual detoxification protocol, that is something that I would recommend that you either speak to your physician or a naturopath or a registered dietitian that is well versed in those protocols, because it can be dangerous if done improperly. Okay? Can everybody see this? Yeah. I'm kind of towards the back. Okay. So this is a smoothie recipe. If you want to take a picture of it with your phone, you can. I know some people like to do that with the slides. But this one in particular has ginger and berry in it. It has collard greens, cherries, oranges, and then of course it's got the, what do you call it? The directions. Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm a little frazzled from running in here. Okay. All right, so this is a common question that I get to, like what foods can I eat to support weight loss or belly fat? And here are some examples. So legumes in particular have soluble fiber that binds to water in the gut, and it forms a gel that sits in the gut and it slows digestion. Okay, so it helps you to feel fuller longer, right? One 5-year study indicated that 10 grams of soluble fiber per day decreased abdominal fat by 3.7%. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it can make a significant dent in your improvement in your progress. Broth, that increases your water intake, volume, and fullness. Research revealed that this decreased intake by 20% when you had it before lunch. Now, of course, you have to be careful if you have any heart concerns or high blood pressures, that you have to be cautious of. So, and that's a good example to throw in here. One diet or eating pattern or lifestyle does not fit all. Everybody has their own unique needs. What works for your neighbor may not work for you at all. It might give you problems with digestion. So again, I'm giving very basic tips, but if you need something specific, that's something that you really should discuss with somebody who's well versed in your medical history, and that can help you sort out the nutrition information. Eggs. An increase in quality protein promotes, again, longer energy bouts and fullness. Apples have a natural compound called ursolic acid, which may assist with fat burning and promoting lean muscle mass. And nuts They have protein, fat, and fiber to stave off cravings. So, and then there's some tips listed here of how to incorporate those into your diet. Does anybody eat legumes on a regular basis? I feel like they just kind of are underrated and are just forgotten about.
Aren't they protein, but they're also carbs?
Yeah.
I'm afraid of carbs.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing. They're nice because they're a double whammy. They'll give you some carbohydrates, but they also have fiber and they also have protein. So they're not going to impact, well, they shouldn't, impact your blood sugars the same way, like, for instance, a piece of white bread would. You know, a piece of white bread, the typical blood sugar reaction is, you know, it's going to spike and crash back down, right? But if you have something that's got fiber in it, some protein, that fiber and protein is going to help blunt that reaction so that you're not getting those spikes and highs and lows and, you know, blood sugar all over the place, and then that creates problems with weight management. So don't forget about that. And if you don't know what they are, have never used them, I encourage you to go to the store and try them out, unless, of course, you have an intolerance to them. All right, intermittent fasting. So this could become a whole topic on its own, but I will touch on it because it's very popular right now, and I've been reading really good research on it, and I do believe it has really great benefits. The thing with intermittent fasting, though, is just like anything else, everybody's different. Women in particular, we tend to be a little bit more sensitive to dietary changes, particularly if they're drastic, because our hormone levels are a little bit more sensitive. So I always recommend to people to kind of ease into a different style of eating. But what intermittent fasting is, there's a million different ways to do it, but basically it's a time-restricted eating window. So the most popular ones are like a 5 and a 2, where you might fast for 2 whole days, or you might only eat like 500 calories on those fasting days. The 16-8 is what they're finding to be ideal. So that would be an 8-hour window of eating and then a 16-hour of fast. But I usually tell people to start with a 12-12. If a 16-8 feels like, whoa, you know, my lifestyle doesn't really fit in with that, I'll say, okay, why don't you start with a 12-12? Because most of that 12, you're probably sleeping, I hope. So I'll say, okay, if you can cut off eating, let's say by 8 p.m., and then you don't start eating again until 8 a.m., and you know, you're sleeping for a chunk of it, that's a good 12-hour window there. So the touted benefits here, hormone levels are said to adjust, and then stored body fat becomes more accessible, which means you can burn it better. Gene expression and cell repair for anti-aging purposes occur during this fasting period. People are seeing improved insulin sensitivity, and HGH, which is the growth hormone for fat loss and muscle gain. So some of the research is showing that even people who aren't changing what they're eating, just by having these time-restricted windows, they're seeing these improvements, which is kind of crazy, but promising. Now, I still tell people, I still encourage people, like, I still prefer that you eat healthy choices, even if you're gonna follow a intermittent fasting window, because there are other health benefits that you're missing out on. If you're like, well, I can just have, you know, fast food for 12 hours and I'm all good, like, you know. Right now, the research is saying that you could possibly do that, but I'm not going to tout that, because like I said, you are missing out on really great antioxidants and other things from healthy foods. So still try to eat healthy in that window.
Oh, nice question.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say you did the 16 and 8, so let's say it was like 11 to 7 where you ate.
Mm-hmm.
Can you then, like, change it if you were going out to dinner one day later and do 1 to 9? Or is it your body likes the same hours to be fasting?
That I haven't seen yet. But that has been a question of mine personally, because my schedule tends to be all over the place. So I'm like, well, I'll just adjust it today and then adjust it tomorrow. So I don't know that yet. I'll have to look and see, if there's research on that. What they are finding too, and this isn't really surprising, but what they are finding is that like circadian rhythms, eating according to circadian rhythms, I think the two are really linked, right? Like we're really not meant to be eating at midnight. We're supposed to be sleeping. We're meant to be getting up with the sun and, eating and stopping by nighttime. So those circadian rhythms, I really feel like this is all kind of tying together. So yeah, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that that's all linked.
Is a circadian rhythm, you're saying that's kind of the same for everyone? It's not like your biological, it's not your clock, where I'm a night owl versus an early bird?
I don't know. I don't know that
Okay.
answer. I mean, I think we're all meant to kind of go with the sun.
Okay.
We're all wired that way. Because if you look at too, there's research on shift workers and how they do really poorly. Now some of it is food choices, right? But they're thinking that part of that is because their circadian rhythm is so off. So I'm thinking that it's really going with sun up to sun down is really what we're kind of supposed to be following. Okay, if you decide to do any type of intermittent fasting, I always say, make sure your doctor knows, especially if you have any significant medical history, in particular diabetes, low blood pressure, certain medications that require you to eat with the medication, if you're underweight, obviously if you're pregnant, etc. As far as supplements go, some of the base recommendations I'll give is a probiotic. Now, there's a million different probiotics out there, and I think we've talked about this before too. The FDA doesn't regulate very well for supplements, so the best thing you can do is look for strains that are specific to your own needs. If you just need a good general probiotic, that's fine, but if you're like, no, I have IBS issues or I've got immunity issues, then you'll want to look for a specific supplement that addresses those issues. And then again, be your own advocate, contact manufacturers, find out if they're doing any third-party testing or if they have an NSF label, because again, you really could start a business out of your basement and the FDA won't step in unless there's concerns. Follow storage recommendations. Some probiotics require refrigeration, some do not. Make sure you're not using them past their expiration date because the strains start to die off. So you want to get the most bang for your buck when you buy these things. Vitamin D is linked to hormone levels and perhaps can support weight loss and decrease body fat. The research, again, goes back and forth on that. However, we live in Wisconsin and it's sunny right now, but as we know, there's a good portion of the year where it's not, or where we may not be getting the exposure that we're meant to get. And certainly you want to be careful of skin cancer as well. But our sun is our best source. So if you've been found to be on the low side or certainly low, then you really do need to talk with your physician about a supplement. Fish oil. Now, if you're a great fish eater and you eat fish 2 to 3 times a week, like the American Heart Association recommends, fantastic. If you're not, like myself, unfortunately, you may want to look into a fish oil for anti-inflammatory purposes. And then a multivitamin, I typically do recommend a multivitamin for people that are trying to lose weight and if you are cutting calories, okay? Multivitamins, same thing here. Look for one that's specific to you. Like, for instance, you would not want to get a woman's versus women wouldn't want to get a man's, or 50 plus versus under 50, right? Because the needs change throughout the lifespan. Herbs and spices can also be very helpful. Now, they're best used when cooking, and what I mean by that is you have to be careful they're in supplement form, because in supplement form, they tend to be very concentrated, whereas if you're using them in cooking, you're likely not dumping, a whole lot of one thing and one serving, right? It's, probably a pinch here, pinch there, and then you're divvying it up in several servings. So you have to be careful in supplement form. If you do take it in supplement form, you, again, talk with your physician. You have to use it per the label. Make sure you're not using it in excess, because too much of a good thing, it does exist. Some complementary ones, although there's benefits to probably all of them, but cinnamon's really great for blood sugars. Fenugreek is another one. That one I don't think I've ever used. Well, I don't know if it's, I mean, I've had chicken curry before. Has anybody else used fenugreek? Okay, so that was one to consider. Cayenne pepper, that's supposed to be good for your metabolism. Ginger and oregano. There's really great immune benefits with oregano. Adaptogens. So I'm sure you probably have all seen like matcha shakes and smoothies, or seen posts about that stuff. So adaptogens are really hot right now as well. What they are thought to do is that they are thought to adapt to the body's specific needs and either energize you or calm you according to what you need. Now, take that with a grain of salt. They have antioxidant properties, which means they also have anti-inflammatory properties. They can be found in teas, supplements, and powders, but again, be very careful in supplement and powder form, especially if there's other ingredients in there. The dose is individual, and it really should be discussed with your physician. Per herbalists, they are non-toxic and safe, but again, the FDA does not regulate them. So just because you go out and you're like, well, I got a maca powder, well, is there other stuff in it besides just maca? Because now we're talking about, I don't know, is it safe? So examples besides maca, ashwagandha, there we go, and turmeric. Okay, and then I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anyone. The research out there is abundant on the Mediterranean diet and how wonderful it is. Now again, that doesn't mean to say that it's meant for everybody, but like I said, the research and long-term research really is great. So if you are looking to tone down inflammation, then the Mediterranean diet is something to look into. Basically, it's an emphasis on plant foods, fish, poultry, olive oil, and grains. There's a little bit of dairy, I think, in there, but not a ton. And then depending on the source that you look at, sometimes it'll allow red meat, but it's like very sparingly. And it does allow for red wine, but moderate. An elimination diet. So, this isn't, now, okay, obviously if you have a lot of GI symptoms and you're like, I don't know what is happening. I can't pinpoint what food it's causing. It happens at all times of the day. It's really frustrating. Then I would suggest talking to a dietitian about doing an elimination diet to try to pinpoint what is going on. But this isn't limited to GI symptoms. If you are having acne, eczema, joint pain, any of those things, it could be related to something that you're eating. You could be having an inflammatory response to a particular food or foods, and you just don't realize it. So in that case, talking to somebody about an elimination diet may be appropriate. When you do an elimination diet, I mean, there's different ways to do it, but typically you would avoid the typical food allergens and suspected foods. So that usually means soy, dairy, peanuts, those types of foods. And then, so the gold standard is an elimination diet, but if you're still having problems with pinpointing what is going on, there are also functional tests to help determine that response as well. The reason I bring this up too is because sometimes when your body is so inflamed, you may have trouble losing weight and or keeping it off. No matter what you do, it's like, what's going on, okay? And then of course, there's the foundation, right? Don't forget about the foundation. Make sure your meals are balanced for all the macronutrients, right? You're getting enough protein, fats, carbohydrates to support your needs. And again, everybody's different. Make sure you're getting adequate hydration. Typical recommendations are half your body weight in ounces, and then you'll want to increase it with high amounts of exercise. I don't think anybody's going to ever argue that we have to have an abundance of vegetables unless, again, you have specific, GI responses to certain vegetables. Focus on whole foods, and if you're going to have sweets, savor them.
Kelly, do you know if I can tell my middle school students the same thing about water, half of their weight?
I don't know kids' needs off the top of my head anymore. I mean, it's always, 64 ounces, but I think so. I'd have to look it up though. I haven't looked up kids in a very long time. We could probably look that up after class just to make sure. If you're going by body weight, it should be safe. Because obviously you don't want to overhydrate them either. But if you're going by their own body weight, I would think it would be safe. But I want to double check on that. Okay, so that's it for the basics of some of the integrative nutrition techniques. Any questions? All right. So there is a wrap-up activity, and everybody should have gotten a handout. So I'm going to stop recording.